Chairman, I think it's clear that the National Park Service, certainly under the direction and action of Director Jarvis, is desperately in need of some oversight. Being a member of the Natural Resources Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations, we actually had a hearing last month on this very subject, and I want to thank Ms. Kendall for being a part of that and for being back here today. Director Jarvis, in your testimony, you stated that you were held accountable for the book deal where you wrote it without approval from the Ethics Office, and your punishment is, as I understand it, monthly ethics training for the remainder of your duration. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's one component.
Okay. I think that's, personally, I don't think that goes far enough, but that's not going to be the point of my questions here. You stated that you've been held accountable for the book debacle, but we also have seen in the hearing today of other problems throughout the National Park Service in Yellowstone, in the Canaveral Seashore and Grand Canyon River District, sexual harassment and other issues. And these individuals were allowed to retire or they were transferred. You stated the need for people to be held accountable for their actions. Do you believe that these people have been held accountable for their actions?
I believe we are following the regulations related to federal employees, and we are applying appropriate discipline. If they are eligible to retire, then they can do that at their...
So you think it's appropriate discipline?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Ms. Kendall, let me ask you, do you believe it's appropriate discipline?
It's hard to say whether it's appropriate. I think it's more the appearance. I would use as an example the chief ranger who was then demoted, as I understand it, in terms of grade, but took the position of superintendent, which by appearances anyway, seems to look like it was more promotion than demotion.
All right, yeah, well, I mean, we've got people who, I mean, egregious behavior, sexual harassment, for example. Would you say that this is a pattern in the National Park Service?
I don't have the data to say it's a pattern, but it's certainly a concern.
Back to you, Mr. Jarvis. When we hear that employees who engage in misconduct or mismanagement are not held accountable, and that is precisely what we hear, when we hear that, it sounds like leadership actually condones misbehavior at the park services. How do you think this affects morale?
Well, actually, I think the fact that I am being disciplined sends a message that no one is exempt in this agency. And I think that employees are being disciplined. Appropriate action in accordance with the rules and regulations that govern federal employees are being applied appropriately throughout the system.
Discipline and punishment is one thing. Hand slapping is another. I would hardly call what's taking place as discipline. Ms. Kendall, back to you. In recent cases of misconduct that you've investigated, how many people have been fired?
I'm not aware of any that have been fired, sir.
All right, so they are retired, perhaps, but not fired.
Perhaps.
Perhaps. But you're not aware of any who have been fired. Director Jarvis, do you find this disturbing?
I find that it is the system in which we live. Firing a federal employee is
That was
very,
not my
very
question.
difficult.
That's not my question. Is it disturbing that people who are engaged in this type of misbehavior, is it disturbing to you that they're not being fired?
Their behavior is extraordinarily disturbing to me, but I am a federal employee, and I understand the rules and regulations that apply to them, and frankly, I don't have the power in most cases to fire these employees.
All right, you still didn't answer my question. It's disturbing to us too, the behavior, but it's also disturbing that they're not being fired. Real quickly, is there, Ms. Kendall, are you aware of NPS employees who are afraid to report misconduct?
I'm not specifically aware of precise NPS employees that are afraid of reporting misconduct, but I do believe that across the Park Service and throughout the department, there is some fear by employees to report misconduct.
Why would people be fearful, Director Jarvis? And I'll close with this.
Well, I think that I don't believe it's fear. I believe that they don't think action will be taken. And I think that what you're seeing today with these reports, and I appreciate the reports from the Office of Inspector General, and the actions that we're going to take and are taking, we are going to see more reporting. I think we're going to get more people to be willing to step up because they're seeing management actually taking action.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.